You are listening to the Central Indiana Sports Report, episode 195.3. Michelle Garmon previews the Women's Big Ten Tournament from an IU perspective.
You're listening to the Central Indiana Sports Report with your host, Greg Mengels.
Welcome, IU fans, to the Central Indiana Sports Report, and welcome Michelle Garmon back here to preview the Women's Big Ten Tournament from an IU perspective. We're going to talk about the entire tournament, but mostly as IU fans. What do you expect to see from the Hoosiers?
Well, if they play like they did the two times that they played against Purdue this year, and the way they played against Ohio State, I expect them to do well. The Hoosiers are going to go. They're going to go the way of how Yarden Garzon goes. When Yardy was a Big Ten today, was announced. She's a second-team All-Big Ten performer, voted by both the coaches and the media. Against Purdue, she became Indiana's record holder for most three-pointers made in a career, and she's a junior, folks, just a junior. That record is going to be so tough to beat after she's done next year. Sydney Parrish is looking really good, and, so is Chloe Moore McNeil. Carolyn Strickland has really been a great pickup, her and Krzyzewski in the transfer portal for the Hoosiers. The Hoosiers can be a dangerous team. They open the Big Ten tournament on Thursday.
Well, let me go over the entire schedule real fast, Michelle, and then
let's do this real quick. I just wanted to say, folks, you got to remember this year the conference is 18 teams, but they're only having a 15-team tournament, so 3 schools were left out of the tournament, and
including Purdue,
and that's probably going to be hard for a lot of people to believe, because for a lot of years Purdue was
a big power of the Big Ten.
A big power, or always a contender in the Big Ten tournament. They might be under, but they always seem to play well in the Big Ten tournament. But Northwestern and Penn State are the ones that did not make the tournament.
It starts on Wednesday, so today at 3:30. So it started at 3:30 with 12-seed Washington against 13-seed Minnesota. Either one a factor?
Yes, Minnesota can be. Minnesota, now Washington likes to hit threes, so they could be a factor maybe early and pull up one or two, maybe pull off an upset or something, possibly. But it's hard, I think, to sustain. They would have to win the tournament. They'd have to win 4 games in 4 days. And if you're primarily a three-point shooting team, I think it's hard to sustain that high volume and high percentage of three-pointers in that scenario.
That's followed by 10-seed Nebraska against 15-seed Rutgers. Either one of those a factor?
Yeah, Nebraska. Like I said, Minnesota ahead. Minnesota was pretty good, has been good at times in big games. Nebraska, they've got some players. I think Nebraska would probably tell you they're probably a little disappointed and felt like that they should be in contention for even possibly a double bye this year. But so they have pieces.
Then number 11 Iowa against number 14 seed Wisconsin. Either one a factor.
Iowa has the inside game. Iowa has Lucy Holston, the transfer. They can be a factor. Might be able to play spoilers. Maybe in the next round. Again, I just don't see them being able to do 4 games in 4 days. Now, Iowa's got some young talent, and by the way, one of their better players is a freshman. Her last name is Guyton, and yes, that is the daughter of former IU standout AJ Guyton.
Thursday at 6 a.m. By the way, these are at Gainbridge Fieldhouse, in case I didn't mention that.
Thursday at what time?
Thursday at noon. Thursday the 6th at noon. Well, I don't know what I was thinking. It is the Oregon Ducks and the Indiana Hoosiers. What are your expectations?
Well, my expectations are Sydney Parrish had a pretty good game against Oregon the first time they played. For those of you that may forget or not be aware, her first 2 college football seasons were spent in Oregon. She signed with and went to play for the Oregon Ducks straight out after she graduated from Hamilton Southeastern. It was COVID time, though. It really had nothing to do with playing time. It was because of the
Comfort.
restrictions and how far away she was from home. So she came back to be a Hoosier. She's very happy she made that choice. You know, I don't think all of her team necessarily played well. I think they're going to want to help Sydney be able to beat Oregon. They didn't win. Oregon won that game the first time they played each other. They're two systems, pretty similar. It's probably one of the reasons Sydney Parrish was able to come back and play so many minutes and has done such a wonderful job in Terry Morin's system. Oregon's a defensive-minded team, and they kind of do defense the same way that Morin and IU. So that game, I expect a defensive battle.
Then Michigan is the 5 seed. They will likely play, you think, Minnesota?
I think it'll be Minnesota.
And Michigan is a factor, I assume?
Yes, Michigan is a factor. They have a co-freshman of the year. Michigan is a team that, my gosh, you look and you're like, oh, they've won some games, and then you look, or who they've beaten, and then you look and say, ooh, how did they lose that, or whatever. Michigan beat IU, but that's a game that that was before they played like Ohio State, and I think it was a good learning game in some ways for IU. They had a big lead on the road, or not a big lead, but a lead on the road, and kind of let that game slip away. But Michigan they might be a team that sneaks through, should win that first round, and then possibly in the next round, and could end up a dark horse semifinalist.
And at 6:30 in the second session at Gainbridge Fieldhouse, it's number 7 Illinois, likely against, you think, Nebraska?
Yeah, I think it probably will be Nebraska. Illinois, they've had a really good season. Again, they came into Assembly Hall and they beat IU there. McKenzie from Illinois, who I thought was an outstanding defender, and she really bothered Yarden. And Yarden doesn't have very many bad games at home, but McKenzie bothered her. And what's so funny, or not funny, because it's not funny, what I can't believe is that neither McKenzie nor Indiana's Chloe Moore McNeil made the all-defensive team for the Big Ten this year. And Chloe had been like a 1 or 2 year member of that all-Big Ten team. And take nothing away, one of the all-Big Ten defensive players is Juju Watkins. Juju Watkins can play, but she does not play hard-nosed defense both ends of the floor. And for her to get defense, what makes her is she probably got it because she can rebound, but because she's a tall guard. She's like 6'1", 6'2", but she didn't shut anybody down when they played IU. I know they beat IU, but she didn't shut anybody down.
Anybody else on Illinois that our listeners might be interested in?
Oh, yeah. They're really going to be interested in graduate student center. Will be, if she does it in the Big Ten tournament, first game, I think she tied the record for career double-doubles. She's already broken Illinois' rebounding record. She's a 1,000-point scorer. That is Kendall Bostic from Kokomo, Indiana, who was a member of 2 of Northwestern's state championship teams and their state runner-up. Kendall is a fantastic player. But even more so, a fantastic young lady off the court. Works so hard, dedicated, loves helping people, family-oriented. She comes back, she runs free camps. And congratulations, Kendall Bostic, because she gets to end her college career as a first-team All-Big Ten selection, as announced today. So congratulations, Kendall. By the way, for Indiana, I think I said Yarden was second team. Sydney Parrish and Chloe Moore McNeil were honorable mention. And Chloe Moore McNeil was the sportsmanship winner for Indiana. Kendall Bostic, for the 4th straight year, was the sportsmanship winner for Illinois, too.
Outstanding.
It is. And, Kendall, I will say this. Kendall Bostic made a play, and this is when I knew she was going to be able to go to college and succeed. Northwestern is playing Tipton, and now the girls play in the main gym, but they used to play in the auxiliary gym. And there's a pass, and Kendall runs the length of the floor and kind of goes in and just kind of put because she played volleyball. It was a spectacular thing, made the basket. I don't know that I'd ever seen a post run, like her. It's like run so well. And on the block, she gets the ball on the block. She's so hard to stop from scoring because she's just is a great player. And like I said, an even better young lady. And what she does for the community, her hometown community there in Kokomo. And she's these Inspire. They're called Inspire Her camps. And she's added the last couple years. She's added doing in Champaign or Illinois. So it's fantastic.
Friday, March 7th, it'll be your Hoosiers, assuming that they can
beat Oregon.
Get past Oregon against number 1 USC and the aforementioned Juju Watkins. That game would be at noon. Then it would be the number 4 seed Maryland against, you think it'll be Michigan or Minnesota?
I think it'll be Michigan.
Okay. Then Illinois against Nebraska. Who do you think that'll be? The winner of that'll play UCLA.
I think it'll be Illinois.
That game is 6:30 on the Big Ten Network on Friday. And then Ohio State will take on the winner of Michigan State and either Iowa or Wisconsin.
And I really think that's going to be Michigan State. And folks, if you really want a team that's not one of the top 4 seeds that could win this tournament, it would be the Michigan State Spartans.
That was my next question. Of those 4, I assume you would put UCLA and USC 1 and 2. Who would you see as number 3? Is it Ohio State? Is it Maryland?
I think it's Michigan State. I'm telling you, Michigan State plays. Their press is really good. They run an offense that they do a lot of passing, a lot of cutting. They can knock down threes when they want. They're very aggressive on the offensive rebounds. They are they're a team that can give fits. They play. I watched the game. I stayed up and I watched the game when they were playing at USC a couple weeks ago. And I'm telling you, USC got a big lead. But guess who came back? And USC, every time they would build up a lead, they couldn't put Michigan State away. And Michigan State is really quick. They sneak up on you, and I mean, Juju had the ball stripped from her a couple times. I don't see that a whole lot now. Her size in the end, I mean, she came together. And don't get me wrong, folks, I like Juju Watkins. She is a great player. I know a lot of people, National Player of the Year. I still say to this day, the only thing she has over the 2 Notre Dame guards is she's over 6 foot or taller, and those guards are lucky if they really are 5'7" or 5'8". So
the semifinals are Saturday, March 8th, 3 o'clock and 5:30 on the Big Ten Network. And the championship game is Sunday, March 9th at 4:30 on CBS. Your best case scenario for the Hoosiers?
Well, they played very well against USC. You
think they can beat them?
Yeah, and I think they can as long as, and when I say this, as long as the game is officiated consistently. And I'm telling you, this is because I've watched Big Ten women's, not just IU. It's so weird, and it all depends on who the Big Ten officials are in certain games. But I just don't think Big Ten as a whole, men's and women's, have necessarily the best officiating crews. I think sometimes it can be hard for a player to adjust because I don't think they're always consistent in what they call, so it gets hard.
And your prediction to win it?
I
know you like UCLA a lot.
Well, I mean, USC has handled UCLA, and I do mean handled them by double digits twice.
Yeah, that's hard to do against.
But it's hard to do it for a third time. Now, here's
real fast. I want to say that everyone says the phrase "it's hard to beat a team 3 times." That's not true. It's hard to beat a good team 3 times.
Now, here's the difference. USC, because they do have a good big, because they got the Stanford transfer, who was impressed. In fact, she impressed me more than Cameron Brink did last year at times. I shouldn't say last year because Cameron. Well, yeah, it was last year because NBA came in the summer after that senior year. If this is the thing, UCLA is a very physical team. Lauren Betts is a very physical player. She was the Defensive Player of the Year in the Big Ten. My sister and I were talking. We weren't going to be surprised that it wasn't going to go to a center because it doesn't normally, but she's good because if she's allowed to play physical, and I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but when she can and she's allowed to play physical and kind of like a Zach Edey type thing, allowed to plant herself in the lane a little bit sometimes, and people forget that she's in there. It's really hard to guard somebody like that for a long period of time. I like Betts. I would say UCLA, what we have to remember is this tournament is being played at Gainbridge Fieldhouse in Indianapolis. Oregon plays Indiana at noon, which is 9 a.m. Pacific Coast time.
That's a good
USC
point.
would play Indiana, or if Indiana
Body
wins,
clock is a real thing.
at noon, which is 9 a.m., and
Body clock is a real thing.
it is. Maryland is kind of intriguing. They lost. Cheyenne Sellers was lights out in the fourth quarter against the Hoosiers. Or kind of in the second half. She really lit it up. She's playing on that knee. That's why I'm not going to lean towards Maryland because of that knee. Wearing that bulky knee brace, it's not 100%. It's not going to get 100%. It'll be hard. I know they got the double bye, which helps them, but that still means 3 games and 3 games, 2 games. How many games do they have to win? 3 games in a row. Yeah. So that means,
Yeah.
that will be hard to do.
Yeah, if they're the 8-9, they'd have to win 3.
Yeah,
Right?
I would say UCLA, USC, and like I said, Michigan. I was just not impressed with Ohio State. In theory, their player, who I always have thought I didn't even notice her on the court against Indiana, and so I know she got all defensive team too. I'm not so sure some of that wasn't based on what she's done, last year and taller, but they have Cody McMahon. But I will say this: Ohio State has a great freshman, the guard Cambridge. I know she shared Freshman Player of the Year awards in the Big Ten, but I think she's fascinating to watch. But I know people are going to say, "Who are you to say this?" I'm not so sure. McGuff, Ohio State's coach, is a great coach. I think he can be outcoached. In fact, I think Terry has done it to him a few times.
Is she the best coach in this tournament?
Terry? I'm biased. I think she is a really good coach, but I will say I think the Big Ten probably has some of the best women's coaches. Brenda Fries is the granddaddy. I know grandma. It doesn't seem right of them all. I mean, she's renowned, and then Lindsay Gottlieb, USC, is good. UCLA's coach, who's been there 14 years, she's pretty good. Lindsay Gottlieb, by the way, got Coach of the Year for the Big Ten. Shauna Green has done a wonderful job at Illinois. Michigan State's coach is fabulous. I just think the Big Ten, I know people from the SEC argue, the SEC is the best conference.
And it is, and has been at least.
I think the Big Ten, actually I think the last 2 years when you just look, I think.
Last 2 years maybe, but over history for sure.
But I will say this, it's no doubt that the Big Ten and the SEC are by far the 2 best conferences in women's basketball. The ACC is right behind them, but not quite up there.
Right. I wouldn't say right behind them.
Well,
it's
I would because
pretty big
because
gap.
they've got Notre Dame, and they've got North Carolina's having a great year. Is pretty good.
Yeah, they've got some good teams for sure, but not as deep as
definitely not as deep as the Big Ten. So it won't surprise me, and I know people have projected it. It won't surprise me to see the Big Ten with anywhere from 10. Well, maybe 12 or 13 teams in NCAA women's. Same thing with the SEC, because
they're so much better than everybody else.
They are. And women's basketball, though, you get parity, because I don't think there's a clear-cut
not this year
to win the national championship.
I don't think so. Not this year.
But
there are most years in women's basketball.
The mid-majors haven't quite caught up to the top conference schools like they have in men's.
Right.
So that's why I don't have a problem with
the first round in women's is pretty boring. Most of the
yes, you have
75% of the games.
Yeah, and most of the upsets that happen are you get the occasional 4-12, but most of them are that is like that. The 5 or whatever.
Unless it's the Ball State Cardinals against the Tennessee Volunteers. All right.
Allie Jones, Elwood girl, played for Ball State at that time.
That's right. We love Ball State here at the Central Indiana Sports Report. Michelle, before we go, give me one storyline for our listeners to watch out for that's not IU related.
Watch out to see how the West Coast teams do perform coming to Indianapolis on the East Coast time.
Especially in their first game.
Yeah. Now, here's the funny thing. Is the championship game on Sunday?
Saturday. I just read it. It is on Sunday.
Well,
4:30.
Guess what? Time changes on Sunday at 2 a.m. on
I think their
Saturday
body
to
clocks.
Sunday.
I think their body clocks will be adjusted by Sunday. Michelle.
No, you would think so, but I mean, I just think that's
Yeah.
kind of ironic because I'm thinking it's in the spring that you lose an hour.
Thank you so much for your time, Michelle.
You're welcome, Greg.
And thank you, everyone, for listening. Please go subscribe to our YouTube channel. Just search Central Indiana Sports Report. We are easy to find. We thank you as always.
And Greg loves Susie.
Oh, wait. First, I got to say the Central Indiana Sports Report is a product of ITG Media. Now.
And Greg loves Susie.
He does indeed love Susie.
And he's sitting here thinking, she's at home sleeping and dreaming of me.
No, yeah, I'm sure she is. Yeah. Thanks again, Michelle.
Thank you, Greg.